I'm Young Buzz. Welcome back to the channel. Today we have something really personal, raw, and honestly quite eye-opening to talk about. This story is about Zion.T, the singer we all know for his unique voice, his artistry, and recently the spotlight on his relationship with TWICE Chaeyoung. But beyond the headlines and the glamour, he opened up about something much deeper. And I think it's going to make us see him in a very different light. So here's what happened. Zion.T appeared as a guest on Dr. Jung Hee-won's YouTube channel. Now, if you don't know Dr. Jung, he's a geriatrician at Asan Medical Center in Seoul and kind of a big deal when it comes to the slow aging movement in Korea. People trust him because he's not just about physical health, but also about mental balance and emotional well-being. And during this interview, Dr. Jung asked Zion.T a very direct question. Does he ever feel depressed or experience an emotional crash after performing? You know, those moments after the adrenaline, the stage lights, and the cheering fans suddenly go quiet. And Zion.T's answer was so honest. He admitted that yes, he struggles with those crashes. He even shared that when he was younger, he went through hallucinations and mild panic episodes. Imagine that. Behind the confident performer we see on stage, there was a young man battling things that most people would never guess. He said he would sometimes hear hallucinations, which is terrifying if you think about it. Most of us can't even imagine how isolating that must have felt. And to cope, he developed these extreme habits. He would literally block out all external noise before going on stage. He'd put on headphones, cut himself off from the outside world, and just listen to quiet jazz until the very moment of stepping onto the stage. For him, that silence was the only way to protect his mind. And you know what? I find this so interesting because it shows us a side of artists we rarely talk about. We always see the performance, the glamour, the applause, but when the lights go off, reality hits. And reality can be very, very heavy. Zion.T also shared another coping method that caught my attention: half-body baths. He explained that he would submerge himself while draining the water, holding his breath until it was gone. And when he finally exhaled, he described it as feeling like being born again. That's such a powerful metaphor, don't you think? It's almost like he created his own personal ritual to reset his mind and body. Now let's pause here and think about this together. Have you ever experienced something like what Zion.T described? Maybe not hallucinations, but that emotional crash after something exciting ends, like you finish a big project, or you've had a fun day with friends, and then suddenly when it's over, you feel this emptiness. That drop. I think a lot of us have been there in our own way, and hearing Zion.T share his version of it makes me realize how universal that feeling is. For performers, though, it's magnified. They go from thousands of fans screaming their names to complete silence in a hotel room. That contrast must be brutal. And what's really striking is how Zion.T doesn't shy away from admitting it. He's not trying to play the perfect idol or the untouchable artist. He's just saying, this is my truth. This is what I went through. And honestly, that vulnerability makes me respect him even more. But here's something I want to throw out to you guys. Do you think enough artists talk about this side of fame? We always hear about comebacks, dating news, scandals, fashion, but not enough about the psychological toll. Why do you think that is? Is it because fans don't want to hear the darker side? Or maybe because idols and singers are pressured to always look happy, even when they're not? Personally, I feel like conversations like this are so important. When someone like Zion.T shares his struggles, it can make fans feel less alone with their own. It breaks that illusion that celebrities are superhuman. They're just like us, maybe even more vulnerable in some ways. And honestly, I wonder if this will change how fans view Chaeyoung and Zion.T as a couple too. Because it's easy to just see the surface, like, oh, they're dating, that's cute. But when you realize the emotional challenges someone like Zion.T has faced, it makes their relationship look more human. Chaeyoung isn't just dating a famous singer, she's with someone who's had to fight through some heavy emotional battles. And that kind of depth adds another layer to how we see them, right? Okay, let's unpack this even more, because what Zion.T said about his rituals, like using silence or half-body baths, actually tells us something bigger about how people cope with stress and mental health challenges in general. It's not just about the methods themselves, but the fact that he needed to create a safe space for his mind. And if you think about it, don't we all have those little rituals too? Some people go for a walk, some listen to music, some binge watch shows, some write in journals. They might not sound as dramatic as Zion.T's half-body bath story, but at the core, it's the same thing. We're all trying to find ways to reset our minds when life gets overwhelming. What stood out to me most was how Zion.T framed it as being born again after the water ritual. That's such a poetic way of describing healing. It makes me wonder, maybe what we all need is to find our own little rebirth moments, something that makes us feel like we can breathe again after being stuck in a suffocating mental space. But let's circle back to something Dr. Chaeyoung mentioned during that talk. He sympathized with Zion.T and even admitted that he's dealt with similar symptoms himself. And this is a doctor we're talking about, someone who studies health for a living. That tells me this isn't just an artist problem. It's a human problem. Anyone, whether you're famous, a student, a parent, or working a 9-to-5, can hit that wall where your mind and emotions get the best of you. Now, here's where I want to pull you guys into the conversation. Do you think we, as fans, sometimes forget that performers are human? Because let's be real, when we see an idol on stage, our first thought isn't usually, I hope they're doing okay mentally. It's more like, wow, that was amazing. When's the next comeback? And I'm guilty of that too. But stories like this remind us that behind the performance, there's someone who might be struggling, someone who might be fighting battles we can't see. I think this is where the K-pop industry, and honestly the entertainment industry in general, has room to grow. Mental health conversations are starting to happen more, but they're still not as open as they should be. And I wonder, if more artists opened up like Zion.T did, would that change the culture? Would fans become more supportive, more patient, maybe even more forgiving when an idol says they need a break? And here's a thought that might be controversial, but I'll say it anyway. Maybe we, as fans, also need to change how we react. Like, instead of getting upset when an artist cancels a schedule or takes a hiatus, maybe we should see it as an act of courage. Because it takes a lot of strength to say, I need to step back for my mental health. What do you guys think? Do you think fandoms are ready for that kind of shift? Personally, I love that Zion.T chose to talk about this publicly. It's not just about him. It's about setting an example. When someone in the spotlight shares their struggles, it gives permission for others to acknowledge their own. And I feel like that's where real change begins. So here's my question for you watching. What's your ritual? What's that one thing you do when life feels overwhelming, when you need to reset? I want you to share it in the comments because, who knows, your method might help someone else who's watching this and doesn't know where to start. Let's make the comments section not just a reaction space, but a resource, a safe little corner of the internet where we can learn from each other. And while we're on this topic, do you think companies should provide more structured mental health support for their artists? Like, should counseling and therapy be part of every idol's contract? Or is that too idealistic? I'd love to hear your thoughts, because this is a conversation that affects not just idols, but the entire industry and fan culture. For me, I think this interview with Zion.T is going to be remembered as more than just a random YouTube appearance. It's a statement. It's him saying, I've struggled, and I found ways to cope, and that's okay. And if that can spark even one person to take their own mental health seriously, then it's already worth it. All right, Buzz family, I'm going to wrap this up, but I really want you to sit with this story for a bit. Zion.T showed us a side of fame that isn't glamorous, but it's real. And maybe that's what makes it the most powerful part of his journey. So now it's your turn. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever felt that emotional crash after something big in your life? What do you do to reset when your mind feels heavy? And how do you think the entertainment industry can better support artists' mental health? I'm genuinely excited to read what you guys have to say, because this is one of those topics where every voice matters. Thank you for hanging out with me and diving deep into this story. If you found this discussion meaningful, don't forget to like, share, and of course, subscribe so you don't miss the next conversation. Until then, this is Young Buzz, signing off. Stay kind, stay curious, and most importantly, take care of yourselves.